What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Ray Garvin back with the gang again. You see around the screen here, February 2023, Kyle Krabs, Damian Parson, and Joe Marino here to talk through some of the things in our most recent February TDN 100 update. Gentlemen, we just got back from Mobile from the 2023 Reese's Senior Bowl. Fantastic event. Good to see y'all in person as well. But all the rage, all the hype leaving the Senior Bowl, I mean, you would have thought we walked away with the entire first round based on social media sentiment. But I want to dive into sort of a philosophical conversation about what we do with the information that we gathered during that week-long event and the game. Joe, I'm going to kick it to you first because there were some players that I saw that I feel like I need to move up. I feel like I didn't know enough about, but just help us contextualize what we do with the information that we got down in Mobile.
Well, I think, first of all, let's acknowledge that the Senior Bowl is probably the most significant data point in the draft scouting process after the games are played, right? This is real football. This isn't a combine with a bunch of dudes in, athletic shorts and spandex running 40-yard dashes, jumping up and down. This is real football. 120 of the best players in the nation competing against each other on the same field under the same circumstances. And so that provides a very, very useful opportunity for us to get a meaningful exposure to these football players. And when I think about how we should use it to impact our evaluations, the first thing that I'm reminded of is how we attack the scouting process as a staff here at the Draft Network, where we have regions. And for all of us, we've been really dialed into our regions really since the summer. And for some of us, this is our first real exposure to these players. Now, we do a great job of talking about prospects, presenting them. We have a good feel for these players. But as much as I love Kyle, as much as I love Keith and Dame, I got to get my own eyes on these players. You know what I mean? And so this is a nice opportunity for me to kind of foil the presentations and scouting reports that have been written versus what my eyes actually tell me. And so that's really useful from the perspective of guys outside my region. But for the ones in my region, I'm kind of thinking of it the other way around. I've been telling these guys all about these players for the last 6 months. They better match up with what I've been telling them. And so that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for, is the player I watched on tape the player that I watched at the Senior Bowl? Yes or no? And then from there, we go back and adjust. Do I need to go back to the film and consider something that wasn't a weakness on tape but really showed up at the Senior Bowl, or something that was a strength of the Senior Bowl that maybe I didn't get enough credit to based on what they showed on tape? So it's a big opportunity to reconcile what the film told you versus that live exposure, which is always different with your own eyes in person, right? We watch all the tape. It's good. It's meaningful. Nothing beats a live evaluation. And obviously it's a big opportunity for us to gain that exposure in the draft scouting process.
No, 100% agree with you, Joe. And to piggyback off of the live exposure, right? Like we watch tape and we see guys and you're like, man, he looks fast on tape, right? Mm-hmm. He moves well on tape. But when you're in Mobile at the Senior Bowl, you really get to experience and feel the speed or the lack thereof, you know what I mean, on the opposite end of the spectrum. Some guys that you thought, like, okay, he moved very well on tape. Then you see him in person, it's like, okay, he's a lot more rigid, real close up, especially us being on the field and on the sideline, getting that bird's eye view, getting that real close look at a lot of these guys. So it's really pivotal for the athletic testing part of, all right, how athletic are you in person? Like, do you run as fast as I thought you ran, or do you move as well? Different things of that nature, right? Offensive line, defensive line. You get to see guys, what are their techniques really like in person? Like, you could tell, like, you watch a guy, you can see a guy in one-on-ones, he's thinking the whole entire rep. He's not really reacting and playing. You can just get that exposure to really see up close and personal what these guys are doing, what their process really looks like, because it's practice, right? We don't get to see them practice with their teams, so we get to see them live and in person actually practicing before the game and just see what they do going from drill to drill and how the mannerisms, all of that plays a part in painting the picture or being the piece of the puzzle that is the draft profile.
Well, Dame, I want to back you on this. You talk about in-person assessment of movement skills, and do you move fast or do you actually move fast, right? There's guys who are smooth athletes, but are they, and they might be efficient athletes if it's a receiver on the perimeter or a defensive back in space, but are you actually dynamic? And on tape, when you're looking at it from the 30,000 foot view, it's a little easier to say, okay, not a lot of wasted movement there, and or man, like he's really picking his feet up and putting them down. But is that paired with actual tangible movement skills instead of just, oh, well, he's a high frequency stepper? You see guys whose feet go a million miles an hour and they look like they're flying on tape, and they come out and they run the mid 4.5s. That's a good time for just about any position on the field. But for some guys, it might not match what your expectation is. I think the thing that's most valuable for me to move the needle is seeing guys in different situations and roles than what they were asked to do on tape. And I think about two defensive backs the last 2 years that have been asked to do quite a bit on tape, Sidney Brown and Jalen Petrie, as guys who went to the Senior Bowl, both of them. And they were put in more positions to be successful at the Senior Bowl than they were in their defenses at times, because what they were asked to do within their respective defense was a very ambitious ask because they are versatile football players. I think about Petrie, and he was asked at times at Baylor to cover so much ground. Then you put him at the Senior Bowl when it's a little bit more of a tangible transition into something that he's probably going to be asked to do, not in the Big 12, but in the NFL. And he had a good week. And for Sidney Brown, he was asked to cover tight ends because he was the best safety in man coverage that Illinois had. But he was almost exclusively covering tight ends because he was the physical guy, even though he wasn't the big guy. And then you see him at the Senior Bowl covering wide receivers and having a lot of success doing that. And the movement skills tell you that he can do that at the NFL level. And that, for me, is the big thing, is unlocking new parts of your game that you can't show on tape, be it because you were put in a box or because you were given so much to do because you were the only guy that could do it. So that for me is really the big needle mover for moving guys up or down or going back to the tape, like Joe said, and trying to reassess and re-inventory where a player actually is versus what you thought he was without that extra context.
And Kyle, is Sidney Brown that guy for you? Because I want to ask DP and I want to ask Joe who that one player where they feel like they need to go back and check the tape again or just give a second opinion on these guys. Is Sidney Brown that player for you, Kyle?
He is that dude for me. Absolutely. I was blown away by just about every dynamic of Sidney Brown in Mobile, from the performance to how he took the coaching, to his communication skills with his teammates in an all-star environment when everyone's getting the same install at the same rate. He just blew it out of the water as far as I'm concerned.
DP, for you, what one player that you saw during that week of practice in the game that you feel like you need to go back and just, good or bad, take another look at?
Wide receiver Xavier Hutchinson. I came in a little higher on him than some, and I liked the route running and everything, but just the lack of long speed, maintaining separation became an issue at practice. Guys were able to, if he did win quick, they were able to get back in phase and get back in that hip pocket, right? And you just don't want to see those type of things, especially from a big body outside receiver. You want to see him be able to maintain and sustain that. And I didn't see that during practice in Mobile, so I definitely want to go back to the tape and reevaluate him.
Joe?
Yeah, the guy for me is Syracuse offensive lineman Matthew Bergeron, a guy that I liked when I did the film assessment. I graded him kind of a late day 2, but after seeing him in Mobile, we're talking about a top 50 player for me, most likely, when it's all said and done. Part of that's the measurement, right? You get an official measurement on the player, and this guy comes in just under 6'5", 320-plus pounds, 82-plus inch wingspan, nearly 34-inch arms. So you feel really good about him being able to play tackle at that size, but the versatility that he showed to play both sides, to play a little bit of guard, and really just dominate his one-on-one reps against what we thought was a very good group of defensive linemen. So I think he affirmed the best parts of his tape, checked the big box in terms of size, showcased versatility, and he's moving up the board.
And this is why, to the original question, these guys are some of the best at what they do, because it's about taking new information, not swinging the pendulum too far in either direction, but going back, even though you trust your process, let me take a look at a player that I may have been a little off on. Kyle, you made some great points. Joe, DP, this is why you guys are phenomenal at your job. So for everybody out there watching this video, take this into consideration, right? This is an important aspect, the Senior Bowl, the Combine, the Pro Days. These are all pieces to the puzzle, right? This is one more crayon in the coloring box because we're trying to take as much information as possible to paint the most complete picture possible. And that's what we do here at the Draft Network. So for the scouts, myself, and the entire Draft Network team, we thank you for being here, checking out this video. If you have yet to do so, hit the thumbs up button, like the content, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below. Really helps us out as far as channel growth. If you want more exclusive access to all of our scouts, the rest of our team members, there's a link in the description to join our premium Discord channel. We got more heat coming real soon. So for Ray, for the Scouts, Draft Network, we're out.